Welcome to Conversations with Scott Fischer, where we will discuss stories, experiences, and learnings over the past 45 years with industry leaders, friends, and dealers. From Harley-Davidson to power sports, leadership to organizational health, and everything in between. Join the conversation. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Conversations with Scott Fischer. I'm Scott Fischer, and today I'm diving into some really big news. I mean, after 40 years in the motorcycle business, you might think that we're ready to slow down, but that's not really our style. We're gonna share some kind of great insight. This year, we made really significant moves and expand into two legendary Harley-Davidson markets, Milwaukee and West Bend, Wisconsin. So those are both home of Harley-Davidson. These dealerships aren't just about selling motorcycles, they're about history, culture, and a community that runs deep with Harley-Davidson pride. I mean, think about it, in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. It's pretty exciting. Joining me today is John Greene. He's not only my business partner, but he is the operating partner of what we call SFE East, and John will be managing those two dealerships. And we're going to talk about what makes these dealerships so special, and how all this fits into the bigger picture of Scott Fischer Enterprise. So let's get into it. You know, before we get into the questions, John, I thought for a quick moment, you might just share our relationship, your story, kind of, how we got together and why we're back at the dealership management level together. Threw you off base there. I know I didn't.
Well, thank you.
Tell you you're going to have to answer that question, but here you go.
That's all right. That's all right. Well, we pivot on the fly, which is good. Well, thanks for having me. These are always fun, right? When you and I have known each other and worked together for 20 plus years now, and so it's easy to have these kind of conversations, right? You're not really digging for a lot of history or context or perspective because we've gone through a lot over those years. But I remember way back, right? This would have been in the early 2000s, and I was running the Lemco management group at the time, and you were the chairman of one of the Harley-Davidson groups there. I don't remember if it was HD4 or whatever it was. And I remember coming and meeting you there, and you always came with such a good leadership team, right? And, at that time it was Wolf and Sandy Smith and Pat Patton and some of those names from way back when. And I was just always impressed with the team and the operations and the insight. And so I asked Ed Lemco at a certain point, I said, hey, I might want to get into the operational side of Harley-Davidson instead of just the 20 Club moderation side of it. Would you mind? And he said no. He said, I think it'd be great if you took what we did and what we teach and you actually put it into practice. So you were the first guy that I called. And I asked you, do you want to grow and do you want a partner? And you said yes to both. And that set us down the road with, we had that one little hiccup with Freedom Harley-Davidson in Denver. But other than that, right, we acquired Chicks Harley-Davidson in December of 2005. So December 1st of this year will be 20 years for what is now Thunderbird Harley-Davidson. And you and Sean still have that store, and it continues to do great out there. And so ran that store as the on-site general manager for 5 years, and then relocated to Fort Myers, where at the time we were centralized. Right? We had the management team there. We had HR, we had accounting, we had the executive team all there. And, at the high point, I think there were 6 stores and an SRL sprinkled throughout the country, quite frankly. No real geographical science behind what we were doing. We just took opportunities where they presented themselves. And, I think we both got to a point where business was really good. And as part of, I think strategic family and estate planning, there are some decisions that were taken to say, we might want to take an opportunity to exit and divest of a few of these stores, which we did. Over the course of probably 3 or 4 years, we exited all markets other than New Mexico. And then we started Digital Lead Performance, which eventually became LeadHelm, right? So we got into the digital lead follow-up business, and LeadHelm is still an active, ongoing entity right now that we now use as a resource for these 2 Wisconsin stores to follow up on our digital lead. So that's probably a different podcast.
Yeah.
And then I took a little break, did a couple years with Harley-Davidson Motor Company here in Milwaukee. So one of the appeals of here is I really like this area, and to be able to come back and be up here at least on a monthly basis, I enjoy that side of it. So, I think we've talked for a long time about what do we want to do next, if anything, right? Do we want to start a training company? Do we want to get into the 20 club side of the business a little bit more? Do we want to go back into motorcycle stores? Should it be Harley? Should it be Marine? Should it be a metric store? So forth. So it kind of brings us, I think what was interesting, this goes back probably a year or more ago. You, me, Kimberly, our CFO, and Sean Delaney sat down and said, we need to craft an acquisition strategy. So if the time is right to buy, we're prepared to do that. And so we did that, and we kind of had that teed up and ready, and we kind of waited until I believe we found the right stores at the right time to do that. And then we took the leap, and here we are, right at the Spring Hill Suites Marriott, Menominee Falls, Wisconsin this morning, talking about what we're doing here.
That's good. Well,
a good run. All kinds of stories. Wow.
Yeah. Couple things there. LeadHelm, actually all 4 stores are using LeadHelm, and that's been that was a great venture for us. But I think what's interesting, one of the some feedback on a lot of what you said was the things we've dove into since really divesting from the stores has been industry related. But I think between you and I, we really just kept coming back to, it's hard to get other operators to do things the way we think they should be done. And, everybody does things the way they think they should be done, and they have success in their model. And it was frustrating for us. It's frustrating because of what we know. We think that we could get momentum, and it was very difficult. It's very frustrating. And we always came back to, whether it was training or other opportunities out there, we said, our greatest opportunity is to be in the motorcycle, is to be in the Harley business. And, look, we had an opportunity to exit during a pretty good time, and we have a great opportunity to exit during a tougher time. It's a tougher time in business right now, so our opportunity is better. So before we jump into some specifics about that, I need to also say that in building a team like we've built to get to where we're at today, we also have Kimberly Haskins, who has been our CFO for over 15 years. And, it's really, when it comes right down to it, it's always about the numbers. It's data drives our business. We've always said it, and Kimberly provides that data. And so I don't want to have her on the outside. We're gonna have another session with Kimberly when we talk about building performance and how to manage performance and how to manage budgets in the same process. So you get the most out of people's real expertise. So Kimberly's also a partner in this SFE East strategy. That's the Milwaukee and West Bend dealerships, and we're excited to all work together and make this happen. So look.
Yeah, I think it's really cool that she's on the partnership side of this with us, right? So with all those years and all the work and all the commitment, that's she's never been in that position, right? And so it's exciting, and I think, for me, watching you progress through your career, and now now it's about how do we how do you create opportunity for others, people, right?
Yeah.
To how do you create additional leaders and opportunity? I think that's a great example of that at this point in her career. So it's great that she's on this, because we'll talk sometimes and she'll be like, "What do you want to do with that?" And I said, "Well, Kimberly, you mean what do we want to do with that?"
Yeah.
Right now, it's a we decision now, not just a me decision. So it's been fun.
Yeah. So John, let's jump in with what drew us to Milwaukee and West Bend. I mean, was it about Harley's legacy in the region, the market opportunity, or is it something else made it feel like the right move? I mean, I've got some thoughts, but I'll let you share what your thoughts are first.
Well, I thought about this when we were talking about kind of what we wanted to cover today, and I wrote down two things, right? And when typically in any time you're making a decision, you have logic and emotion, and they're both present. And typically, emotion wins out over logic. And you give all kinds of examples of that, which we don't have to do right now. But the emotional side of this, right, is about, this is the home of Harley-Davidson, right? They started here in 1903 at Juneau Avenue. Milwaukee Harley-Davidson, one of our acquisitions, is the only Harley-Davidson dealership in the city of Milwaukee. It's the only one with a 414 area code. So there's that mystique and that allure of being, kind of a reverence for that store, and the ability to kind of shepherd that store really back to what we believe is a place of prominence that it should rightfully have, based on where it is and what it is and the history. So, and then the West Bend store, it's close, but it's far away. It's set off a little bit. It's a completely different market, different kind of customer, different operation, smaller town, family feel, so forth. So I think the emotional side of it was, wow, Milwaukee, really cool. Harley's here. People come from all over the world to see Juneau Avenue or to come to the museum, right? We were here. What's crazy, we took over on the 3rd of July, right? The homecoming rally started on the 8th or the 9th, right? So we had less than a week to execute a rally. So when I talk about people coming to Milwaukee to pay homage to the home of the brand, right, that really exists. There were hundreds of thousands of motorcyclists here in this city coming to all the area dealerships, and we got to see it firsthand. So the emotional side of it was really strong. But you say, okay, you don't make decisions, you shouldn't make decisions on emotion, right? You should make decisions on logic. So logically, what happens here? Well, we had the internal resources to be able to do this, right? We just with some changes in the LeadHelm landscape and so on and so forth, we had people-wise, we were in a position to do it. I think we saw opportunity for performance improvement in the market, right? We saw market reports. We came and visited the store. We looked for cultural things, energy things, and we thought we still believe that there's an opportunity to improve those things. So opportunity. And then I think, we talk about the timing. You always want to buy low and sell high. And I would say this would be a low point in terms of acquisition costs historically that we've seen, at least in the 25 years I've been doing this. So that part. And then I think the other thing, and when we talk about the timing of that a little bit, we hoped and we're optimistic that we would see some change at the top leadership levels of Harley-Davidson Motor Company. And, we just found out last week that those changes are in fact coming, and they're coming later this year. So I think all those things to me fit together to say this is logic and emotion. We checked both those boxes and said, let's go do this.
Yeah, that's good. So I think it's interesting because we've looked at a lot of stores, and I think that when we came back, we looked at Wisconsin some time ago, and then we took another picture of it again. And I think when we really looked at the second time, you know, what we saw really was emotion was a big driver in it because where its location was. But as we dug deeper into the performance of the market area and the feedback of the market area, we saw opportunity. And I think that it's great that the past owner that was there made it possible for us to make a great deal on the stores, on both stores. There's a lot of work to do. I mean, in that market area. And one of the big things that keeps coming up all the time is location of the store, and we're excited about location there because of we feel that what we want to do with a dealership with the customer base, with bringing people together, the location's ideal in both Milwaukee and West Bend. So we're excited about that. And we just it's always a question that comes up. What about location? And we have, that's a whole nother discussion about what we've learned in location. And we don't need to be at Main and Broad Street to make the Harley business work. You need to be at a place where it's comfortable for the customer. But um, I think it's important. People ask all the time, why now after 40 years? After 40 years of doing this in business, why are we doing this now? For you, it's after I'm 20 or 25 years. I'm not sure how many years you stack up when you add the consulting side to it. But a lot of people keep asking, why now? And why now, I think, is important because of people. We talk about the industry. We talk about the industry and the challenges with the industry, the changes that might be coming with the industry. But John and Kimberly and others that are working for us now have been with us for a long time, and there's still great opportunity. I mean, to me, um, do I need to be in another Harley store or even in the Harley stores I have? Not necessarily, but I still love the business and I still love the leadership side that I get to play. That's kind of the real advantage, is to be away from the front line, keep moving up that line till you're in a situation where you got great people working around you, making stuff happen. So why now after 40 years is, look, it's what we know, and we've got good people to make it happen. And it's exciting to be able to make a shift late. And I'm as excited about the Harley business in Wisconsin right now as I've been about any Harley business. I see great opportunity there. And what do we want to accomplish? I mean, I think it's really clear. We really want to turn those stores around. It's a great market. There's great dealerships there. I mean, look, we're not the only ones. There's a couple really great operators in Wisconsin and around the Milwaukee area. But there's enough business for all of us. And you know what? We can grow the Harley business. We can build the brand in the Milwaukee area like it was once before. I think that's an exciting goal to reach, is to really create a stronger brand in the marketplace.
I think that's right. I think the why now, and I think you said it right. Two pieces to that to me. You've got, if we still didn't get excited talking about traffic logs, right?
Yeah.
And literally, and operations and staffing and organizational health, if that still didn't get our juices going, we probably wouldn't have done something like this. But it still is exciting, right? Because if you go back to really where we came from, it was on the front line in those stores running the day-to-day business, right, with the staff and with the customers. And we're a little more removed from that intimacy, but it's still the same business. So there's an excitement side of it, and I think we still have a lot to give to these stores, to the staff that we have, to the customers in these areas. And the moment that goes away, the moment that passion goes away, it's time to get out.
Right.
But until it goes away, keep playing your strength.
Yeah. One of the one of the key things that pulls us back in is that the industry and the people actually need what we know. The industry and the staff. It's like what really excites us about Milwaukee, about West Bend. Is it people? Is it the culture? Is it the potential? It's all of them. I mean, what excites us, what excited me about our intro with the staff was really in tune to listen to us. And the next day, or right away, we had the wrap the homecoming, and we have hundreds of people, and all we really got to do during that time frame was shake hands, stand at the front door and shake hands, and you could feel the engagement with customers. And you knew staff. We knew the staff. We could feel the staff was looking for leadership. Are they always cautious? They always are. New leadership, new caution. Are the new guys going to be better than the old guys? They all always hope so, because at the end of the day, staff, although we want them to work for the company, it is all about them. It is all about how a job or a career fits for them, and they're always looking to better themselves and better their opportunities. So, for me, I really think that building the people, bringing health to those organizations, which is about getting our staff really aligned, really focused on themselves, each other, and the customer, is probably the most exciting thing. The potential will come if we do that. If we build the health in those stores, if we really get the employees and the customers aligned, we'll grow the business. The potential will be there. And we're not trying to, it's not a situation where we have to make miracles happen. It's just you got to build a team and a staff and have health in it.
Right. And I think the exciting part is the challenge, right? The challenges keep you sharp, and the challenge to build the right culture in these stores, right?
Yeah.
And people toss around culture just all the time, willy-nilly,
Right.
like, oh, it's culture this, culture that. But culture's tangible. Right?
Yeah.
You walk into a business of any type and you can feel it. It's the engagement of the staff, it's a uniform, it's presentation, it's cleanliness, it's music, it's environment, it's all those things together, process and procedure, that creates culture, and people feel it. Internal and external people feel it. And that's the piece that it's hard. How do I say this? Some business owners, operators in any business don't focus as much on culture as I believe they should, because it's not kind of a technical management skill that you're ever trained on, right? You don't learn a lot in business school about how you measure culture, because you can't measure it, right? So some people kind of shy away from that. Well, if I can't measure it, I can't management, I don't want to do that. Well, it is a fundamental differentiator in any business, all those components of culture that I just talked about. And the opportunity and the challenge to create that, I think that's the most exciting thing. Is it a lot of work? Absolutely. You get resistance? Absolutely. But historically, over 25, because organizational health and our focus on culture has been in place in your organization since 2004. You had just created organizational health and the clarity document before I joined you, and I joined you at the first quarter of 2005, right? So we're 21 years as practitioners of organizational health. And we know it is a difference maker. You just got to create it. You got to drive it every day.
Yes, it's interesting, that what you bring up 2005, just so that people can put some content to that. In 2004, 2005, we probably were at a time frame when Harleys were the very most demanded and had the highest profit margin you could ever expect to have in any industry, especially our industry. Yet, I left for vacation with the thought process of real frustration. Customers didn't like us. We had high employee turnover, and it just was you make all this money, but it's not fun. I mean, you make all this money, but it's not really rewarding. What is rewarding? Rewarding is when you can make lives better. When you can make customers and employees' lives better. And we were fortunate to have a great peer of mine, Sandy Smith, who was our COO at the time. She handed me some books and said, we're frustrated. Let's work out this together. Let's read these books. And we read these books about building health in an organization. And honestly, it was a turning in, I think, many people's lives in our business. And people still today, whether inside of our business or outside of our business, still believe in creating health in an organization as clearly the most competitive advantage a business can have. And it brings us back to, we talked about people, culture, and potential. you know One of the things we always talked about was, you go into these stores, or even one of our old stores. When we visit the stores, you kind of envision they got this great big huge wheel in the dealership, and you can't hardly move it. It's so heavy and you can't move it. But when the team comes together and really works together, they begin to move this wheel. This wheel begins moving some, and the harder they work, the smarter they get. The wheel turns faster, and then you can't slow it down. That's what creates culture, and that's what creates potential. Is when you get the team all aligned, working together, moving getting that flywheel really moving. And we see that in Wisconsin. We know that when we're there, it's a little stuck. The store's stuck. I mean, how do we get some lube in this wheel? How do we get this thing going? And it does come back to, it actually in our document, as you recall, John, at the bottom is, you create culture by creating employee engagement. Employee engagement drives customer experience, and customer experience is all about culture. So it's the wheel that you get moving, and if you do those things right, the potential comes. The market goes up and down, but when you have the people and the customers in place the right way, you're going to prosper in an industry. As long as the industry is a good industry, and that's what we see here. So it's a pretty cool strategy for us, and so John, what's your thoughts about the bigger picture for Wisconsin? I mean, what do you think? What do you think we'll do with a store like that long term?
That's a hard question.
Yeah. Well,
I think we have two different situations here, right? We have a plan for the Milwaukee store, right, that involves over time a transfer of equity ownership to our general manager, BT, operating partner that'll be there. So that store, I think, has its future fairly well laid out, assuming we hit all the strides and we execute on those things. And it keeps us involved for quite a long time, the foreseeable future for sure. Mm-hmm. But it also allows what I would call a smooth transition of ownership and operational oversight and so forth. And so that one's exciting, right? Because again, it's creating an opportunity that will impact that operator's life forever.
Right.
The opportunity to come in and own a Harley store and live in the town and run it and that's your thing. That's a great opportunity. So that one is there. I really, really like that West Bend market a lot. It's great. Look, they're very different. Customer bases are different. Locations are different. What you need to do for staff and activation things and events are different at those things, which is fun. But you could see holding that West Bend store for quite a while. I think it's a little diamond in the rough there. So it's hard to look that far out. I think as as I always joke with the managers sometimes, right? Depending on the position of a person inside an organization, right? The higher they get on the leadership ladder, the longer the time horizon they use to think about things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So if you're at your level, right, you're thinking 3 years, 5 years, 7 years down the line. What do I want to do? Right. What do I want to hold? What do I want to divest? Where do I want to go? And then you come down, and some people are thinking, 1 to 3 years, and then some are thinking this, and then you get some frontline staff, and they're thinking about what am I going to have for lunch,
Yeah.
right? And so I don't know that I can get past this 5-year window in my brain right now. As a I know where I want to be, where we want these stores to be, coming into season Q1, early Q2 of 2026,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so we've got some offsite planning that we've got scheduled. We bring the teams together for a full day, and we start to lay out what 26 looks like. So that's kind of the shorter, immediate term stuff. And then assuming we get the execution and the culture built and so forth, if you get them running right, it's hard to not want to keep them for a while because they're profitable. You're creating great opportunity. The customers are happy. The staff's happy. It generates good income for everybody, and it doesn't require the heavy lift that it requires when you do an acquisition.
Yeah. Yeah, so you brought up that it's the time horizon is different for everybody. So when we talk about bigger picture, you may talk about legacy. To me, having people in position to be in ownership is really important. It wasn't early. Before it was about building my wealth, my business. I didn't really want a large or someone to take over the business through their ownership structure. But now, we look at these stores here, just like the team we have engaged right now, whether they take over in a time frame, you and Kimberly, whether the operating managers we put in the stores take over. If we No one will take them over if they don't work. So first, if we move in here and we create performance and have great potential, one, we get value out of our investment and our time out of it. We have earnings, and then we have earnings when we sell all or part of it. But anybody who takes over in that situation like that has a level of appreciation for the people who brought them there. So, I never really thought about it quite that way, but it is kind of a legacy move. When you look at it, you're creating opportunity for people. It is a legacy move, and I've not ever really thought about it from the same standpoint, but I do want to make that happen. I think the individuals that run the stores, they're looking for an opportunity, and right now, today, are the best opportunities because the way we're able to make acquisitions happen, we're also able to make opportunities happen, with individuals, and that's really why we're here today. I mean, quite honestly. So I think it's pretty exciting. So
it's very exciting,
yeah.
And I think sometimes it takes moments like this to actually sit and reflect on, that the scope of what's actually happening,
Yeah.
and the reasons it's happening, right? We get, like anybody else, you get so focused on the day to day and what do I have to accomplish and tasks and so forth that sometimes we don't take an opportunity to go up in elevation and look at it from a higher level. So it's a good reflection,
Yeah.
for sure.
So one other point I want to bring up, which I think is a really big point, and Wisconsin has shared this feedback with us again, just like New Mexico shared this feedback. Any market we've gone in and shared this feedback is, Harley. Well, first of all, Harley has big roots in Milwaukee, in Milwaukee and in Wisconsin. We have big roots in Southwest Florida, or I have big roots, and so do you, even though you live in Greenville now. But we've built our roots in Southwest Florida. One of the challenges I think any owners have in acquisitions is if they're not from the local market, how do they create connection? How do we create connection? I think it's one of the important challenges we have there. So I don't know if you've thought about it more. And there's a lot of obviously there's a lot of employees that are in both of our stores that are from the market areas. But how will we engage further in the community so people don't say, hey, they're just a bunch of buyers from other markets. We don't want that to happen. We don't want for people to think that we're not community, that we're not focused on the community.
Well, I think, we've had within SFE for as long as I can remember a firm belief that you give back to the communities in which you do business. Right? That's what you do. So I think for here, there's some things that typically get associated with Harley dealerships historically. And we will obviously support those. So you've got hog chapters, you've got military, police, fire, first responders. You've got those segments of the population that have always been, one, they're incredibly valuable to society and we respect the work they do, but they have a tie and a love for the brand that we want to continue to support. So we will do that. And then I think importantly, two things have to happen. We need our new players to the market to be out in the community and start to understand and find areas of need and opportunity. Because like you said, Scott, there's other dealers in this market that are great dealers and they've been here for a while. They've got charity things and organizations that they support, and that's wonderful. So we need to identify where's a real need and where's a kind of a connection that we can find in both Milwaukee and in West Bend. And again, whether it's food or literacy or education, some type of charitable thing that happens there. And I think the best way to do it, other than the operators being out there in the market, is leverage the experience of the staff.
Yes.
Yeah. We've got in each of these stores. In the Milwaukee store, we have a fixed ops manager that's been there for 28 years. And in West Bend, we have a general merchandise manager. She's been there 29 years. So they are a wealth of information about what are these community needs. What have we tried as a dealership in the past that's worked? Where have we made an impact? So I think it's a lot of conversations internally, and it's a lot of outreach out in the community to, again, understand where's the need and where could we potentially have impact that aligns with our values. I think is an important piece. So that one will take a bit of time to come together, but I know it's already in the works at these stores. Identify those sweet spots of need. A lot of opportunity. I know that.
Yeah. It's good. Well, look, we did talk a little bit about building, how about you manage these, you let the data drive these business, but, I think what we've talked about most of this whole conversation it is about the people, it's about the culture, it's about building something that matters, taking big swings, we're taking a big swing here, it's a big investment outside of the market. But it's two incredible dealerships, and we think that there's a great opportunity for us to do a lot for the people there, for the customers there, and I think that it's good to stay focused, in the game. We've been here for a long time. We're staying focused in the game, so it's exciting to be here. So John, look, it's great having you here today. We're gonna keep driving this as partners, and it's going to be exciting to look at even the next chapter. I'm not sure what that is yet, but I think for the people listening, remember, when you when you have to itch to do something big and bold, don't wait for the timing, because there's never a perfect timing to do something big and bold. It's time to do it when the opportunity sets itself in front of you, and I think that's what we've done. You mentioned earlier that we set up a strategy for the future, and we prepared for the future. We said this is what we'll do when the timing's right, and lo and behold, the Wisconsin stores get in front of us, and we took advantage of what we worked on, over a year ago. It's exciting to do that. So look, remember, be bold and step up right away. Any closing comments, John?
Well, I think something. This is a I don't know who said this quote originally, but it's that thing. It says, it's amazing. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
And it's there was a lot of preparation, right? We put in a lot of time and effort and energy and planning into that acquisition strategy, not knowing if we would ever use it.
Yeah.
Right. But sometimes that hard work creates its own opportunity, and you're prepared when the timing's right. So it's a pleasure. I'm excited about it, Scott. It's fun to get together and talk about this stuff, share some of these stories, particularly some of the names that have just come up in this discussion about people who've been on the team in the past that helped build some of the SFE legacy that's in place. And it's always great to reflect on those who've contributed to the effort along the way, whether they're with the team anymore or not. So that was a little bit of a walk down memory lane. Has been fun.
Yeah, it's a good point you brought up.
Get to work.
It's a good point you brought up about hard work, because hard work. What is hard work? Hard work is staying very active in whatever you do, or learning more about whatever you do. Because the more that you stay involved, the more you stay at least aligned with what you do, the luckier you get. Opportunities just come along when you're engaged. If you're not engaged, opportunities don't come along. And so a lot of people look at that as luck, but really it's hard work that makes that happen. So look, it's great. We'll see you the next time on Conversations with Scott Fischer, and we appreciate it, John. We'll look forward to catching up here, about Wisconsin in the near future.
We'll do it. Thanks for having me, Scott.
All right. Thanks again.